officially our first ever episode. Welcome to Let's Talk Email. I'm Stephen Sayer. I work brand side as a CRM lead, and this is my co-host, Jay. Jay, introduce yourself.
I'm Jay. I'm head of dev at an agency called Action Rocket. I basically do email code all day, every day. So that I get to be an email geek full time. That's the plan anyway. That's how it should go.
Whether it goes to plan is a different question altogether.
Yeah.
Cool. So with our first ever episode, we're thinking fonts because someone I know has just written a massive article about fonts.
Yeah. So it started because of, and I still haven't covered the subject I wanted to cover in my article. I've started at the beginning and I haven't got to the part that I want to talk about. So we'll eventually get to that later, I guess.
Yeah.
So it all started about HTML elements and how to style with HTML elements. So that will be a part of it at some point. Fonts is such a big thing in email. So
definitely.
In terms of the design all the way up to the code and then how it renders on email clients, there's so many things to talk about and so many things to cover. So that's why Stephen had to try and read half an hour's worth of reading earlier. And he probably hasn't finished it, but that's fine.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I have read all of it. But there's a few points because obviously when people think about email design, so for example, for me, I'm the full stack email developer. So everything to do with design to coding goes through me. Whereas sometimes, like yourself as an agency, you might get a design handed to you that you have to code up. Some brands obviously have their preferred fonts, or in their brand guidelines, we only use specific fonts.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to adding those to email, it can be a bit of a pain. For HTML emails, I believe there's 3 ways of adding them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
First of all, there's the link.
Yep.
Then there's @import, and then what is the third one again?
Just straight up @font face in the CSS. So essentially, so if you want to bring an email, a font into your email, you have to link to it somehow. So that link has to be somewhere. So the first problem with that is that some email clients don't allow you to really link to anything that's a resource. So Gmail is a really good example. It never lets you link to a style sheet. It won't let you link to
anything external.
Anything external, right? Yeah. So straight away, that is the first barrier to the fonts. So you've got a link to something. And then, how do you bring that link in? So like you said, there's the @import and link and the font face. So the @import and the link both use a CSS file, essentially. So what you're doing is you're putting a CSS file somewhere, whether that's the Google Fonts one that you get if you download it, if you get the link straight from Google Fonts or Adobe Fonts or wherever it is. And then that link, if you clicked on it and opened it in your browser, would have the CSS which has font face in it. So basically that's what's happening. You're just linking to it. So like I said, the different ways, there's a few reasons why you would do one or the other. But all of them will use font face basically. So font face is in CSS how we specify what a font is. And within that font, we put the link to the font and the file type. And then you pull it in. You literally just write @import and then in brackets in the URL, you just put your link, right? But the problem with that one is that @import is fetched last. So if you imagine
after everything.
So you imagine the way your HTML email loads is it's the browser or the email client, whatever it is, starts at the line at the very top and then just works its way down and down and down and down. And as it gets from top to bottom, it loads everything. So @import breaks that a little bit. So no matter where you put it in your file, your font will always download last. So there's a couple of issues with that. So the first one is if you've got a load of images and they are relatively large images, all of those images have got to load before your font then loads. Or you've just got loads of HTML because that's also a thing as well. So
very long newsletters.
Exactly. So if you're using @import, then you're almost certainly on a longer email going to cause some kind of layout shift. So your email is going to load first off with any generic font that is on your system, and then you might have specified it, you might not have done, and then at the end your font will load and then it will change. Normally emails load pretty quickly, so you don't really notice that, but it's something just keep in mind that that is something that will happen, basically.
Definitely. And when you're referring to, obviously, when it loads without the font face, you're talking about the font stack, which is another technical term, I suppose.
Like your computer will have fonts on it, right? So
yeah,
and every computer will have, or every device will have a default font, whether it's a sans serif or a serif font, and
like Arial, Helvetica, etc.
Yeah. So those will always load first, generally, and then you're going to go onto your @import one. So that's kind of how the @import thing works. The link one that you mentioned is pretty much the same, except it is downloaded in line. So if you put your link right at the very top, like under your meta tags at the top, then the file will start downloading and it won't continue downloading until your fonts have downloaded. So that could cause your email to load very slowly because it's not even going to try and download your HTML, essentially. It's just going to stop at that, download your fonts.
So priority levels.
Yeah. And if you think about like one of the problems with Google Fonts is you can put as many different fonts in that link as you like. So if you have got a Google font link in your email, I would recommend you open it in your browser and just see how much CSS is already in there. Because even if you just download like Open Sans, it downloads the
variants,
all the different variants. So you've got like Latin extended, Cyrillic, every single one of those. And then if you've got like the 400 weight, the normal, the 600 for bold, etc. Like if you've got all of those, it then downloads every one of those as well. So I think even if you just download one, there's already 8 fonts in there. So if you do 4 different weights and there's 8 fonts, then you're going to download 32 fonts.
It's exponential. It's just going on and on.
Before you've even loaded your email, right? So that's going to take a long time.
There is another point with that, though, because I believe in HTML, you can actually write inline styles to just increase that anyway, regardless of if you've got the 800 weight of that font or not. So you can kind of pseudo get around it. I guess that could also depend on how it renders in different clients as well, because maybe it doesn't all render the same.
Yeah, a really good example of that is Apple Mail. So basically, on your devices and browsers, the normal kind of font weights are mostly supported. So you've got normal and bold, right? So that is 400 and 600, say. So if you say, if like you said, you've got your normal font, and then in Apple Mail you say you want it bold, then it will just make the normal font bolder, which is fine. But if you already have a bold font in Apple Mail, so you've downloaded the bold version, but you then don't specify the font weight in your font face, and then in Apple Mail inline you write bold, it will actually bold your bold. So if you've ever opened an email, if you ever opened an email where on Apple Mail and the font looks really bold, like way bolder than you think it should do, then most likely that's the problem. It's downloaded the font and then it's tried to bold or something that's already bold. So but like you said, you could do most fonts. To be honest, it's whether you're working with the designer or not. I think is normally the way it works.
Key.
Because they'll notice that, and rightly so, that if you common letters like a capital G or like a capital F, if you make them bolder, the line weight of the font gets bolder, and where the joins are in like a capital G or an uppercase G, or an F, those lines get closer together. So in the bold version, they've taken that into account and moved it or whatever. Whereas if you're just bolding the regular version, then you won't get those little changes. So it all really depends on
leading, if you want to get technical.
Exactly. So it's thinking about all of those bits, basically, all of that. So you could download just the normal one and then bold it if it doesn't cause too much of an issue. So those are the two like external style sheets. So one hurdle to that could be if you're not using an Adobe font or a Google font, then you have to host that style sheet somewhere. And
Yes, yeah.
a lot of ESPs I've worked with don't actually allow you to host a CSS file. So one step might be you've got to talk to your web development team to say, can you host this file? Yeah, and then maybe they've also got to host your font, etc.
Yeah, a lot of hurdles to jump over.
Yeah,
also, if said developers, they might have moved the file as well without you knowing. So there's a possibility of that getting
things
lost.
change all the time. Exactly. Yeah. So hosting is possibly a difficulty, which is why so many people go for a Google font, because it's backwards compatible. If they do an update, it's not going to break it, stuff like that. They're already hosting it. It's free. You haven't even got to think about the cost of it. So yeah, and also they have so many fonts that you're probably going to find one that you do want.
It's crazy, yeah. Google Fonts is so open, easy, and accessible. That's the main thing. Especially with like small companies that might not have the budget for licenses for loads of different fonts and things. But one interesting thing in your article was about Google Fonts, where they actually had a GDPR case.
So in Germany, someone brought up against them a lawsuit that said that basically because you are download. So when you request a file from a server, then the server will ask for some information. Normally, it's something like your IP address, because that's where it's got to send the file, right? So it will have that. Now, technically, under GDPR, that is a piece of personal identifiable information, or PII. So because in Germany, the laws are very strict on GDPR and you're not allowed to send PII outside of the European Union, then the reason they got in trouble was because they were downloading a Google font, and that Google font happened to be hosted in an American server. So then the PII went to America. So that was breaking the GDPR. So so if you did use a Google font and you needed to host it in Europe, there wasn't really an option at the time. So there's a company called Font Bunny. So it's like fontbunny.net, and they have all of the Google fonts, except they're on a European server. So if you're worried about GDPR, you can literally just swap the Google Fonts URL with the Font Bunny one, and it'll work exactly the same.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't actually know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't find, when I knew about that case, so I always make sure other people know about it when like someone's like consulting with us or something like that. But since then, I haven't seen any other cases. And I do remember reading after the case as well that Google, usually they will host your font in a server which is closest to your location because of the speed that it would load. So
that makes sense.
Normally, it's probably going to be hosted in Europe. So it probably isn't a problem. But if you're a company that really does need to worry about that kind of thing, like if you're really strict on GDPR already and you've got loads of things in place to stop PII going anywhere that it shouldn't, then email shouldn't really be an exception to that. You probably do want to
of course,
make sure you get it in the right place. If you're bringing your CSS in, so if you're going to use @fontface instead of using like a link or an import, then you can literally just copy the font face from the CSS file. So for Google Fonts, you can just open it, find the one which is Latin, which is for English-speaking countries, Western countries, something like that. Copy it and paste it. And if you just do that, it will work. You can remove some of the CSS that's not needed. So they've got like font display swap and things like that, which email doesn't support. Or they've also got the UTF character ranges in there, which you can remove. Otherwise, you can literally just copy and paste it straight in and you're done. I always advocate for that version.
Right.
So what the reason is that up to a certain point, so all of them have their uses, right? But if normally you're only going to use like 3 to 4, maybe 5 fonts max in like with bold, regular, etc. So if you're going to do that, then using font face is fine, because what you're going to do is every single time you need to download something, it's a request to the server and it takes time, right? So if all you do is download the font file instead of downloading the CSS file and then downloading the font file, then
like
you're you're taking a step out. And it does load quicker. Like when you measure it, it's milliseconds quicker, but it's quicker. So I just think that it's the easiest. And also because you can see what's there, you can control it. And like you said, you can reduce the CSS because you don't need some of the stuff that's in like the Google font file, etc. And also, if you're hosting your own fonts, then you haven't then got to create another CSS style sheet that is hosted externally. You can just literally take the URL of your font, which makes it so much quicker and easier than doing anything else. So
the only concern I would have is obviously with Google inboxes, it has the kind of 100, is it 120 kilobytes?
100, well, it's like around 100, we say. So 102, I think, is what most people like quote, but we always aim for like 100. Yeah.
Yeah, under 100. So I guess if you were adding like the whole font face into the head of the email, it could definitely put the email weight up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I guess there's always pros and cons of everything, right? So you've got to like
definitely.
Yeah, but what was the Megan's newsletter was called "It Depends," and I think that really
it depends. Yeah, it really
it's a
catchphrase, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I would say if you've got like 3 or 4, like that's fine to do font face, and then if you've got more than that, I would do the link method, and put, if you can, instead of doing multiple links, try and get all the fonts in one CSS file and just do one link.
Just try and streamline it as much as possible.
So you choose what you want, which is a custom one, and then generally for sans serif, people tend to go for Helvetica because it's a slightly nicer font. However, Helvetica isn't on every device, and it isn't on every Windows device even. So Arial is on every device. It has like 99.8% support across all devices. So by the time you've gone, oh, there's no Molly, there's no Helvetica, oh, Arial, it will probably be Arial. But then you do then specify that it is a sans serif, because otherwise the browser or client, whatever it is, they don't know what type of font that is because you haven't specified it. So by specifying sans serif, it will always be a sans serif font that gets shown, which is actually important for Gmail, because Gmail has its own fonts that it uses. And if you don't specify them in your stack, then it will just do whatever you've kind of said. So pretty much everyone that's sans serif is getting Google Product Sans, which is basically Open Sans but slightly different. So when you open it in Gmail, that's what it is. And then if you've got serif, then it's going to be what's the other one, like Roboto or something.
Yeah.
Sans. Yeah. So yeah, there's quite a few that they're like specific. But yeah, so yeah, the font stack is really difficult thing actually when you're working. So as a brand, like for yourself, because you know that you need that is like, you always do that font stack. Whereas if you're like, for us as an agency, sometimes brands will come to us and they'll say, here's our brand guidelines, these are the fonts you must use. And then we look at the fonts and we say, wicked, they're all custom fonts. So what do you want to happen when those fonts won't load? And then they're like, oh, we didn't know that was a thing. So then you're like, oh, okay, well, let's try and figure that out. Like, what are we going to do? So we find that a lot of brand guidelines, unless you've had someone who's done email on your team before, there won't be someone to say, what is the font stack for email? Because everyone just assumes that across the web, you can use any font you like. So there's not going to be a problem. One of the brands that we work with, they had a font which was very compressed. So all the letters were really, really small and really close together.
Like Impact or something.
I can't remember what it was.
One of them.
Impact is actually a different kind of font face, which is actually like a poster font face, which is quite bold and big, and it's deliberately made to be massive. Whereas like a condensed one would be, I don't know, like just something that's basically just like all like squished. Basically squished. So the problem is there isn't a good squished font that is available on all operating systems, basically. So we loaded their custom font and we designed everything in their custom font because obviously that's what they would like to see it in. But then on Gmail and lots of other clients, it was never going to load. So we always had a fallback of like, I think because it was a serif font, it meant that we had like Georgia, and then after Georgia, it might be Times New Roman, then after Times New Roman, it would be serif. So because Georgia is not a condensed font, then that causes all sorts of issues for layouts, because if you've got a like a 2-column module where you've got a headline that splits only onto 2 lines with this condensed font, all of a sudden it would load in Gmail and it would be over 4 lines. So then that has automatically stretched it, like, and then the image next to it is too small because the text has got bigger. So that it really causes a headache. So the font width was something that we were having struggle with, but then also the height of the fonts as well. So because they were condensed so much, they wanted a smaller line height, which meant all the text was really close together, unless it was this actual custom font. So essentially, you had one experience for Apple Mail, because Apple Mail and iOS Mail were pretty much the only ones that now load fonts, and then a different experience for everyone else. So, but they wanted us to design it with their condensed font.
I was going to say, what do you do in that situation when a company comes to you and it's like, we only use custom and we don't have any fallbacks?
Yeah, so we had to advise them and say, look, you've got to pick a fallback. So we have taken the initiative and gone and found what we think to be the best one. So can you please get this approved by your brand? So then it normally goes like a week or 2 before the brand comes back and says, yes, we agree with that. Or they're like, oh, actually, we've found this. And then they usually send you a load of Google font links and you have to go, okay, we can't use those. I'm really sorry. You have to use these ones.
You still have the same issue.
This is the same issue. Yeah. So yeah, because quite a lot of the brands that we work with, they have gone out and bought a specific font themselves and had it designed. So for them, they're like, oh, a font that's available to everyone, that must be a Google font, when actually that's not quite what we meant. So we are much better at describing what we need now and give them links to, there's 2 really good websites. So Modern Font Stack is the one I would probably use the most. And then there's CSS Fonts, which is very old, but actually still quite reliable. And especially if you're trying to, like, email clients don't move that quickly. So those fonts are still, and also most operating system fonts stay around for a long time. So Arial, Impact, like all those ones, they've been around forever. So they're not going to change. So they're really good kind of starting point.
So what specifically are those websites? So can you put in a custom font and it'll recommend fallbacks for you, or is it just...
No, CSS Fonts literally is just a list of all of the fonts for Apple, for Microsoft, and other stuff. And it just says, so if you find like Helvetica on the list, it will say that like the overall coverage is only 56%.
Okay, so you get statistics as well.
Yeah, so you get some statistics. Yeah. Whereas Modern Font Stack, what they actually do is they put it into the different typefaces. So if you've got like the Helvetica typeface, then it will show you groupings of fonts that look very similar to Helvetica, or other. So you can, that one's a very good one and quite visual as well. So it'll then give you a list of all of the operating system fonts that you could use. One of the caveats for that one is they are very, very detailed. So some of the font stacks have got like 10 fonts in them, because you've got like the system fonts, and then you've got Apple fonts, then Linux fonts, then Android fonts.
Okay,
so they go all the way down the system.
Operating specific.
Yeah. So you might want to cull a few of those, but you can find the ones you want. But yeah, so we would go back to them and give them that information, and then basically there's 2 things you're looking at, right? The letter width. So if you've got a condensed font, you want to try and find those, and then X height. So X height is exactly what it sounds like, which is literally the height of your X on your
X
font.
character. Yeah.
Not your ex-girlfriend. That would be really confusing, wouldn't it? The X height is my X. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the X letter font, the height of that, you should be able to compare that across font. There isn't actually a very good tool out there at the moment to kind of do that. So I built my own one on the blog, basically. So you can put in your custom font, and then you can choose from a variety of what a lot of people used to call web safe fonts, which is essentially your operating system font. Yeah, so you can go on and choose them, and you can put in a load of custom ones and see what they look like. Because basically, you just want to look at literally the letter width and the X height, so that you can see, you want to get as close as possible, and then you're not worried about all those layout shifts that I kind of mentioned with that brand, because otherwise you end up trying to figure it out, like, can we only use 2 words? How do we put breaks in? Do we have to put breaks here? That kind of stuff, and it's always a bit complicated. And also, I think on Email Geeks there was a question once of like, how do we change the line height and stuff for one specific font in the font stack? How do you do that, basically?
Yeah, because to my knowledge, it's not a very targetable thing.
No, so you can't target the font, but what you can target is the email client. So luckily, we know that only Apple Mail and iOS Mail really work with the custom fonts. So we used specific targeting for them, and then we just changed the font height, font size, and line height for that. And because we use semantic HTML the whole way through, so heading tags and paragraph tags, it means that I don't have to put a class on every single heading to change it or anything like that. So you can just say all H2s, they're going to be this font size in AppleMail, and do that the whole way through. So yeah, using how to target.email, you can find how to target a specific email client. And for fonts, the only real one you have to worry about is that AppleMail iOS mail, so that you can change it. And then inline for your CSS for everything else, you just put whatever it is for all the other email clients.
Have you ever had pushback from a client where it's just like, we definitely need to use this font, where you've basically had to slice and dice an email? Because I think that's the only way you could get a custom font in otherwise.
Yeah, that is the only way to guarantee that your font will stay the same in all email clients, is literally do it as images. We have, and we've made it work in a few instances. So what we can kind of compromise on is, we say, in terms of accessibility for the WCAG guidelines, if you're going to hit that AA level, then it's not a straight no on text in images. So you can have text in images, but what they say is, first of all, you have to make sure your alt tag is there and has the correct alt information. But also, they recommend that you just repeat that information somewhere else in the live text. A lot of the time, it's normally they want to use their font when they've got like a big banner or a big heading, or
headings is
sale or something like that. Yeah, like those big things that, like, maybe because who we were working with was a restaurant, right? So they've got it on their billboards, they've got it on their A-frames outside the restaurant, they've got it on the menus on the table. So they want that exact kind of creative that someone's created there for the deal that week.
It's kind of like their signature in a way.
Yeah, it's got to be that way in the email. So like, that's just the thing. It's got to be that way. So yeah, so we can compromise on that. So we just say, we're going to make the alt text exactly the same, and we're always going to try and repeat whatever's in there in the body text. So if it's like, 20% off this week on your meal, then in the body text you put, come in and get an evening meal. Oh, you'll get 20% off this week or whatever. So even if the image didn't load and the alt text didn't work, all of that information still gets across.
Yes, yeah.
So that meets the accessibility guidelines. But some clients, there's just no way to do it. BBC, for their highest level transactional emails that have to be super accessible, they have to meet the AAA guidelines. Or if you're working with anyone that's like .gov.uk or something like that, all of their emails have to hit that AAA accessibility.
Yeah, so like organizations, government, educational, health services.
The WCAG guidelines are very clear. You can't have text in images. So normally they already know that, and normally their fonts normally are not that fancy. So like the BBC got their own one designed called BBC Reef Sans, and that is easier to read, better for people that have got dyslexia or other things like that. So it was specifically designed to be easily readable, but actually it's very close to like Open Sans and Helvetica and Arial. Like they're all very similar. So luckily, you can you can get pretty close to the brand without it. And then, but we have sliced images for clients before when they're insistent that absolutely everything has to look exactly as it is. And if that's what it is, that's fine. We just don't end up working with them very long, I think, basically.
Wow. Okay, then.
Yeah, I mean, we had one brand that actually came to us and they started with all image emails. So for a time, we had to, as we were building the design systems, like we had to keep up with what they were doing already. And one of the hardest things was they actually sent in 21 different languages. So we had to create.
Yikes.
Yeah, every email had to be desktop and mobile and in 21 different languages. So
and it's sliced and diced.
And it's sliced, yeah. Which, I mean, actually coding for a sliced email is very.
I mean, it's heaven because it's a few lines, copy paste, image URLs, and jobs are good. But for accessibility, because I mean, I know it's like not a myth per se, but when it comes to like spam filters and things like that, obviously there's loads of articles that say like don't use all image, you need to have like 80% text. Deliverability, as I understand it, I mean, I'm not an expert by any means, but deliverability has so many factors built in. So like how people engage, how people open to clicks, and how many times you send, and how many people you're sending to it in a specific time frame. It's one of those myths that just go around about all image emails. So, I mean, yes, all image emails are not recommended, but at the same time, I don't think they're overly bad. But it's just, please, if you can make it live text, make it text. If not, there's got to be a little bit of give and take, I suppose, especially, like you say, if you're working really close to a designer and everything has to be near enough pixel perfect. You can obviously go back and say, well, we can't guarantee this font will work in all email clients. Because like I say, I feel like Apple Mail's the easiest email client to code for because it near enough supports everything that we want to do. Anything fancy we want to do in email, Apple Mail usually supports. When it comes to other clients, we can have that compromise of if you just want the headings to be that specific font, we could just use images. Not saying it's recommended. It's just that compromise. It's the give and take, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Unless you're an organization that does need that have AAA WCAG guideline, like you said, deliverability wise. So from talking to a lot of email clients, one of the big signals for them is engagement. So as long as you're engaging with an email and your emails are engaging, then you're most likely not going to suffer by sending a lot of images. So that 80% rule might not be 100% correct. So, and also, like, it depends on the brand, but some brands you can only really do if you have an image. So there's a little bit of an argument of, well, again, the only thing that this really is against the people that say, oh, images are not downloaded automatically. Not everyone downloads images. Like, the argument for that is, well, yeah, but if I get an email from a clothing company, I'm going to download the images because I want to see what they look like before I go through. And it's the same for lots of other things. Like we work with quite a lot of video games, and people who play video games want to see what they look like. So they're not going to be happy with like an email that's just a load of text. So they want to see the latest character, the latest level.
Yeah, the preview.
Yeah. So like, if they do that, they're gonna want to see the images. So they're going to download the images. So that's not really the problem. The problem is how someone with assistive technology would experience your email. Then you need to think about other things of,
screen readers.
Yeah. You've got alt text, you've got make sure you can navigate it nicely, make sure the text layout is nice so that it's easy to read and go through. Don't be precious with your text if the text has something important. Like I said, if you've got a discount code or information about a sale or anything that is your main thing in your email, you probably want to write that with proper text somewhere so that someone can see it. If it is in an image, if you've got alt text there, then most email clients will allow the alt text to be read out. So then, or be part of the kind of transcript of a screen reader or something like that. So you should still be able to get that information. It's just not the best experience. It comes back to that. It depends again, right? Like you're always going to be figuring out, like, do we send live text? Do we not? So, but there's lots of other reasons why you should go with live text. So languages is a big one. Like, if you've got
translation.
Translation, like live translation in your email client as well. Like if I get an email from Gmail, so I sign up to, there's a email agency called Bad Sender that's based in France. They've got like an email building tool called Le Patron or Patron. That it's all in French. It always has been in French. And I know some of the team there and watch some of their webinars completely in French. So I have no idea what they're talking about most of the time. I can open it in Gmail and I can translate it and then I can see what's on there. So, and it's all normal text. So as long as they have the text in there, I can do that. So that's a really important thing, I think. And even if you believe that all of your recipients are in the UK and they all read English, there might be some people who English isn't their first language. So they might, if it's got more text in it, they might want to translate it. So even if they open it in Gmail, they might translate it to French or Spanish or whatever they want to do it to. So I think live text is really important there. But also, like, have you tried, like, if you've got 21 different languages in 21 different images, and then someone's like, oh, could we just change this word? It's like, yeah, we can change that word, but that's now 6 hours of work for me to go through and change that word. Fonts are hard in email, but I think as long as you know what is possible and what isn't possible, then you can kind of pre-plan for a lot of these things. So if you know the custom fonts only work in certain places, like if you're a brand or if you're an agency, you can automatically go, right, it's going to look this good in Apple Mail and iOS Mail. Everywhere else is going to look slightly different. So how can we plan for that? Let's look at the font stack and let's plan those fonts that we do want to be in there.
It's getting all the stakeholders invested as well. So like, yes, we can use this font in Apple Mail, but we will have to compromise and have a fallback unless obviously you set on having these headers at least, or call to actions. Call to actions is a big one because they might be designed in a specific way and we can't replicate that through like drop shadows in email. They are possible in some clients, but not really supported across the board.
Yeah, so you've got the old, the buttons.cm that's been around for a while where you can stick a background image on it and stick some text over the top. The real big issue with that one, which is a definite no-no, is that if you use VML background image and you have a link on it, there's actually no way for someone using a keyboard to access a link inside the VML in Outlook. So if you're using a button like that and you want someone to click on your link, if they use a keyboard, they're never going to be able to click that link. Obviously, for your email, you probably want people to click your links. Otherwise, what's the point in sending it?
Yeah, definitely.
So, that's a big problem. But yeah, a lot of the things like you mentioned, a lot of the things can be done just with CSS, and you get varying support across email clients. Apart from you could do background images for your buttons for every single button, and then in Outlook, just don't have a background image, so you're not using VML.
Fall back to a solid color.
Or you can probably do something to make it look a little bit better. Yeah, you're just not going to get that same experience. But we know that because we've worked in email for a long time, and I have to explain this concept over and over and over to lots of people that your email is going to look different in every email client. I've been on the brand side where you're just like, actually, I want it to look the same everywhere, in which case, an image of a button, which you can click on, is going to be the same everywhere. So hard to argue against and hard to argue for. Yeah, I think something that you should try to do anyway.
Coming back to it all depends.
Yeah. It really is just it depends. Yeah. I was just trying to think of anything else specific with fonts. I mean, there's so much we could talk about for fonts.
There's so much, but I think we could make this a font series. To be honest, you can't cover everything to do with fonts in just one small episode, I suppose.
Yeah, so exactly. Yeah. I think we've covered the majority, right? So if you want a font, there's the different ways to link it, and you know why you would link it that way. And then we've covered the font stack, so that you know that you have to come up with these different fonts. That's pretty much 99% of the way there. So, if a brand has already decided what their fonts are and they've decided on their typeface, then you can miss out the first third of my article, which is all about deciding on typefaces and fonts. So you can completely disregard that. And then the next bit.
You want people to read your article, though.
They don't have to read all of it. They can just read the bits that's important to them. And then the next bit is what email clients support it.
And the tools to use. So not how to target. Sorry, can I email?
Yeah. Check out can I email. See if it supports @fontface. See if it supports import or link, that kind of thing. Yeah, I mean the only other thing we haven't really covered is the type of font file. Across all the email clients, the best support you're going to get is for a WOFF, so WOFF, or WOFF2. Between those two, you're covering all the email clients. WOFF2 is just a smaller font file size, so it will load quicker. Google Fonts and Adobe Fonts already come with WOFF2, so I would say just aim for WOFF2 as your font file, and then you're basically set across all the different email clients. If your designer only gives it to you in a TTF or an EOT type, then just convert it and then host it, and just check legally that you're allowed to do that. But generally, most fonts have that as part of their kind of contract. And then, like we said, so get the right font file type, get it hosted, get it in there, do the font stack, and you're pretty much there with fonts, right?
Get it in there is the key.
Just get it in there. Get it in your email.
So I think what we've determined from this discussion is you would probably recommend doing the @fontface if it's just a singular font or a very cut down. There's just the standard bold italic fonts. If it's more than that, you can use the link way of importing it. And then the very last or least preferred method would be the @ import.
Yeah.
Because it's loaded last, essentially. So everything else renders in your email first, and then finally the font at the end.
The only reason we tend to reach for @ import is due to ESP limitations. So @ import is part of a style, so it's in the CSS in your head. So if you don't have access to that, but you can add HTML to the head with meta tags or something like that, then you can use the link version. And then, if you have full control over the CSS, then you could do the @ font face. Hopefully you can do the @ import in that case. All the different ESPs I've been in, some of them will delete your @ import. Some of them, I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Iterable or Eloqua. They used to count every font download as a click. So that really
interesting.
Yeah. So you'd get loads of clicks on your email, but no one's ever actually clicked on a link. And you were like, what are they clicking on? And it turned out that it was registering font links as links that people clicked on. So yeah, that's another gotcha kind of thing. So keeping their eye out for that.
We already have trouble with Apple's MPP giving us false clicks. Give us a break.
Well, at least that was just in the ESP. So every email that I downloaded the font, so I was like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here.
Just got Moana in my head then. I see what's happening here. You're face to face with greatness and it's strange.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's the sign of how old our kids are. We'll have let it go on.
Let it go, Moana. Just catchy songs, catchy Disney songs.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you want to talk about the next episode or tease what we could have coming up?
You big tease, Jay. Yeah. So I believe the next episode is going to be a guest appearance. Who that guest is, nobody knows.
No, it's a surprise right now.
It is a bit of a surprise right now. But if you are interested in appearing on this lovely podcast with me and Jay, get in touch. You can find us on the Email Geek Slack or LinkedIn, or you have Twitter.
Yeah, I'm email Jay in most places. Or if you search for Jay Oram and Stephen Sayo, I'm sure you'd find us. Yeah, and then just drop us a message. It'd be really cool to find different people to talk to. Yeah, we've got.
We want to hear from you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you've never been on a podcast as well, then just come on and talk about the job you do at email, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions and things that we could talk about. We don't want to just hear from the same old people all the time.
Definitely. You got to start somewhere, and why not here?
Yeah, cool. Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.
Bye.